Hello everyone, welcome back. Here is Ali Talabi, and this is our wrap-up session for Module 16, Economic and Industry Analysis. So let's start our session. So in this module, we talk about economic industry analysis. We talk about the GDP, which is usually used to measure the performance of the overall economy. I mentioned that real GDP growth is a better indicator than the real GDP, and real GDP is better than the nominal GDP. What's the difference between the real GDP and the nominal GDP? So you take out the impact of inflation, which is calculated based on CPI, Consumer Price Index. So that's why real GDP provides a better indicator of the overall performance. Now, if you're looking over time, so you can track the growth of real GDP, which helps you to understand how the economy is performing. It's getting bigger, it's getting smaller, so that's a better indicator than the nominal GDP. We talk about the top-down, bottom-up approach. I mentioned the top-down is very common when it comes to investment, when it comes to stock investment. The bottom-up is used less. So the top-down was like an inverse funnel, starting with economy, and then you look at the industry, and finally you go with the company or a specific firm and analyzing whether it's a good investment. We have two cycles. One is for the whole economy, which is called business cycle. The other, which is for industry, is called life cycle or industry life cycle. They are not the same. The business cycle is for the macroeconomic activity, so it's related to the whole economy. However, when you go and talk about the specific sector, industry, you will use the life cycle for the industry. Remember, the business cycle is very important to us. It impacts on the asset allocation. So when we're talking about the asset allocation, we're talking about investing on bonds, stocks, or any other classes of assets. When the economy is recovering, expanding, it's better to invest on stock. So you can put aside more money to invest on stock, so less on bonds or fixed income securities. When we're talking about contraction, the economy is shrinking, it's becoming smaller, it's better to go with the kind of more fixed income securities or bonds. Remember that when it comes to recession, it's better to go with defensive sectors. When you talk about a growing economy, it's better to go with cyclical sectors to invest. For the international investment, the currency risk or the exchange rate risk is a major factor. You have to consider that it might destroy your return, or in some cases, you might increase your return if the currency you are investing on is going actually to appreciate. There are some funds, some ETFs which you can choose. Those are hedged against a specific currency. For example, if you're investing Canadian dollar, you can find the Canadian dollar hedged funds or ETFs which are actually protecting you against any currency fluctuation. And don't forget, the inflation is a very important factor. You might find some economies which the return on investment is huge, double-digit investment return, which is very tempting. However, the inflation is also very high, which means the value of the currency of that country is going down quickly. Now, let's look at the few questions. So let's go with the first question. Let's say you have $100,000 and you want just to invest in Paris Stock Exchange, which is in euro. So you found this very great company, but it's in Paris Stock Exchange. So you have to convert your money to euro. The current rate, let's assume, is 1.35 dollar per euro, which means that if you want to get 1 euro, you have to pay $1.35. Let's assume you are getting 10% gain on your investment in euro, and then you're going to convert back your euros into dollars. And in this case, the rate will go down, and let's assume the rate goes down to $1.30, which means you will receive less dollars for the same euro. So let's go with the steps. The first step, you have to convert your dollar into euro. So this is $1.35 per euro. So you have to divide it by the rate to get equivalent euro. So $100,000 divided by 1.35, so you get 74,074. So this is the euro you are getting when you convert your dollar to euro. Now you have the euro, you can invest in that stock exchange and buy that French company's stock. After 1 year, he's saying that you are getting 10% gain. So it means that your 74,074 euros, now it's growing to 81,481.48 euro. Still, you're in euro, you just added 10% to your investment. And the last step, you are actually converting back the euro to dollar because you don't need the euro anymore. You want just to spend the money in dollar. What is the current exchange rate? Is $1.30 per euro. So now you have 81,481.48 euro. You are converting back to dollar. You have to be careful here. In the first step, I divided by 1.35. Now I'm multiplying by 1.3. Why? Because the first step, I needed euro, I had dollar. In the third step, I have euro, I'm converting back to a dollar. So be careful with multiplication or division when it comes to foreign currencies. So I multiply that by 1.3 and I'm getting 105,926 almost. So now this is in dollar, correct? So $105,926. What was your original money? It was $100,000. So you were able to increase your money from 100,000 to 105,926, which is 5.926% increase. Or if you look at the options, the closest number we have is 5.93%. So you're gaining 5.93%, which you see it's less than 10% gain. Why? Because unfortunately, the exchange rate has changed against your money. So you're losing money because the US dollar appreciated, or in other words, the euro depreciated. Remember, you invested on euro, so now the euro worth less versus US dollar. That's why you're actually losing on exchange rate. But still, you're making some money, which is not as much as 10%, but still that's positive. Now let's look at the next question. So we have the information from the GDP, gross domestic product, and the CPI for a specific economy over the last 3 years. The question here is, what is the real GDP growth for 2019? Remember, we're talking about the real GDP, so you have to take out the impact of inflation. But what is the inflation? The inflation, that's the difference, or I would say the changes in the consumer price index, or CPI. So you see that during 2019, the CPI has been growing from 105 to 110. So the question is, the inflation, what is the inflation for 2019? So for 2019, the inflation is 110 divided by 105 minus 1. So it's showing the inflation rate during 2019. So 110 divided by 105, and the number I'm getting here is 4.76%. So your inflation rate during 2019 has been 4.76%. So you have to take out the impact of inflation from your GDP. So what is your GDP growth? The same thing. So you can find the GDP growth rate for 2019. So it's going up from 135 to 145. So 145 divided by 135 minus 1. So let me just find the growth rate. So it's 7.4%. So your nominal GDP is growing up by 7.4%. So you have to be careful. This is the nominal GDP growth. You're looking for the real GDP growth. We have to take out the impact of inflation. How we can do that? There is two ways. You can go with approximate version or the exact version. The approximate version, you just deduct 4.76 from 7.4. This is less accurate, specifically if the numbers are huge, like double-digit growth rate or double-digit inflation. So I encourage you to use the exact version. So that's 1 plus the GDP growth, which is 1.074, divided by 1 plus inflation, which is 1.0476 minus 1. This gives you the exact real GDP growth. So let's calculate that. 1.074 divided by 1.0476 minus 1, and the number I'm getting here is 2.52 percent almost. So it's 2.52 and there are more numbers there, but 2.52. And if you look at the options, the closest actual answer I have is D, 2.52%. So the answer should be D, not C. C is showing the inflation, 4.76, and not E. E is showing the GDP growth, but the nominal GDP growth. You're looking for the real GDP growth. So the only correct answer should be D. Let's look at the next question. Government determination of tax rates and spending policies called. So we talk about the monetary policies and fiscal policies. I mentioned that for the fiscal policies, governments are usually playing with two major factors, the tax rate and the government spending. So this is classified as a fiscal policy. So the answer here should be A, fiscal policy. So for sure it's not monetary. We don't have budgetary policy. At least it's not related to the government and federal spending policy. So the most relevant here is the fiscal policy. Let's look at the last question. So we talk about different sectors with industry. We talk about defensive sectors. We talk about cyclical sector. I mentioned defensive sectors are less sensitive to what's happening in the economy, the macroeconomic level, and the cyclical is more sensitive to the changes in the economic factors. So let's see which one is the correct answer. So we're talking about the high sensitivity to the business cycle. So high sensitivity is related to the cyclical. So the first portion should be cyclical. And which sector has low sensitivity to the business cycle? So we talk about defensive. So the first part should be cyclical. The second should be defensive. Then the right answer is D. Thank you very much. That's it for today. Have a wonderful day. Talk to you soon. Here is Ali Talabi. Stay safe.